To a whole foot.
Wow, official. Okay, first thing I'd like to do is welcome everyone to the December meeting of the Pawleys Island Town Council. And our first order of business this evening is a public hearing to discuss the first reading of ordinance 2021-11. The ordinance is adopting the 2022 annual operating budget. As part of the public hearing, we'll open the floor to anyone who wants to speak. We've got, looks like we have one person signed up. I assume that's in reference to the budget for you, correct? All right, if so, the first person signed up is Bill Kaufman. You've got 3 minutes and you can stand seated, however you prefer. Yes, sir.
It's only the second time I've ever addressed the group here, but I have real big concerns about this defund of the police. It hasn't worked wherever they've tried it. And I have a house back in Hagley Estates. And if we're going to give up our police protection and depend on Georgetown County to cover us, Mr. Dixon, I have not, in 3 years, have not seen a patrol car go by on Old Walker Mall one time in 3 years. Now, I may see them running radar on Kings River Road, but every lot back there is being built on right now. And in 5 years, there will be no lots around here on the neck that have not been built on. All these people are going to come to the beach. They're going to come here. And it may not be a problem for people who live in the middle of the island, but it is for us that live on the south end and the north end. And the parking, you just go, the trash, the noise, et cetera. If Georgetown County can't enforce the laws of the town of Pawleys Island, what good do they do? I'm tired of the gyrations every time Mike tries to get a 5% or whatever increase in his budget. These people are hard workers. They don't make a lot of money. There are probably people here who do make a lot of money. People on the island make a lot of money. But we need to take care of our law enforcement officers and pat them on the back and not get rid of cut their budget in half, so we lose most of it. This does not make sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? I don't think there's anybody else here to speak to that. So we'll close the public hearing and move on into our regular meeting. First thing I need to do is call the meeting to order. And second item is public comments. I don't think anyone else has signed up for public comments. So we'll move into item 3, which is approval of minutes. We've got 2 sets of minutes that are in your packet, the regular meeting from November 15th. And then also the meeting minutes from our budget work session on November 16th. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review those. I'll entertain a motion to.
I'll make the motion to approve the regular meeting, if possible, the work session as well.
All right, a motion to approve the minutes for those 2 dates. If I hear a second.
I guess that's only me. I have to second it. Rocky can't, right?
And Rocky second?
You can.
You can.
Oh, okay.
It's a formality, I guess.
Rocky, you're going to second. Did you second?
I did.
Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Um,
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Rocky. Item number 4, reports and updates. First up is Chief Fanning with the police report.
As far as criminal traffic enforcement, we did have 3 people given tickets for driving under suspension, 2 for suspended registration, 2 for possession of smoking marijuana, and warnings, and same thing with parking enforcement. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary really in the month's incidents.
Any questions for the chief? All right, let's move on to the building report. Item 4B. That copy of that report is in your packet. There's a half dozen or so permits in progress. Anything out of the ordinary there, Ryan?
Through construction at 132 Atlantic, that was one that went before the ARB. That's currently under construction, but otherwise, nothing out of the ordinary.
Why wouldn't it be a evaluation on that?
On which one? The top
Is
one?
that top? Yeah,
That's a demo.
okay.
Any questions any other questions about the building report?
No.
All right, item 4C, the financial report. Item 1 is items 1 and 2 are related. The first being to approve payment to Sanders Brothers Construction for $21,695. Item 2 is approved payment to Wapro Inc. for $13,927. That is related to the drain improvements to 2 locations, one south of Town Hall, one north at the North Causeway. That the second item is to install the backflow preventer. I understand that there's also some contributions, private contributions that have been made towards these 2 items to offset the cost of the overall cost of the project, correct?
We've received,
Rocky can speak to that.
Go ahead, Rocky.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there are still some funds that have been committed but not received, but we'll have no problem living up to our commitment to fund 50% of that through private donations. And I would also say that the actual total cost of the project was significantly lower than we had predicted it to be. We were able to negotiate with Sanders and get their prices down. And then Wapro also gave us a very, very good price on both of the valves we installed. So we won that way, and we'll have no difficulty coming up with the 50% of our total expenditures from private donations.
Rocky, I would also add that DOT stepped up to the plate with fill materials and some of the other cost elements associated with that project. They did a nice job kicking in and helping us out.
Absolutely.
We do need to probably contact them soon to get that little stretch on the south of Town Hall at Pavilion Road paved, because it's still not rough, but it needs to be paved over.
Did the bladder work?
Well, I guess I was thinking, Brian, we might just wait and then do the entire paying and get it done then, huh? Because they're going to pay more liability.
Pay the rest of the place. Yeah, Rocky, Sarah asked, did the bladder work? And, I can tell you this, Sarah, I came over here one day when I went down, broke by this, and rode down to your house.
Uh-huh.
And it was still water in the road down there after the high tide, probably 3 hours later. There wasn't any water out here.
Really?
So it wasn't by the chapel.
Right, well, that's,
But nothing's gonna work like on that tide we had a month ago,
no,
but it worked the other day. Rocky, you agree?
Well, not only that, Gary, we had the highest king tide of the year this past weekend. And the road, both in front of the condominium and down by the point across from Eddie Wilder's house, was completely dry. So, I mean, I think it was an amazing success. And I know a lot of our property owners seem to be ecstatic about it, particularly those in the condos and other locations are just thrilled. And I had breakfast with a property owner on the north end that morning, actually, that the tide hit, and he had to go back to the north end. And his comment was, man, thank you so much I would have had to be driving through saltwater today if those valves hadn't been put in place. So yeah, I think it's been a stunning success. And I guess, Sarah, my thinking would be, and I've asked Ryan to include monies in the budget. My thinking would be that we proceed now to basically do the same thing or very similar thing at the corner of Pritchard and Atlantic. So, maybe.
spring.
Spring.
Okay.
I think that would be the next thing to do. It's a little, and Sarah, I'm more than happy to continue to honcho the technical side of it and the contractual side of it. It's a little more complicated there because there are 4 outfalls there as opposed to 2. And we don't exactly know how they function at this moment, but we need to figure that out. But I'm happy to take on the technical and contractual side. I was hoping that you might be willing to honcho the fundraising side, since they're your neighbors, basically.
Sure.
Awesome.
Can you give me an idea of, or I'll get with Ryan and then how much are we talking about, that kind of thing?
Sure, yeah, we can definitely give you an estimate. It'll be better once we kind of get a little inspection on those outfalls and see which one of them are actually the bad offenders. I was thinking maybe between you and somebody like Fran down at the corner there might, just from history, know which of those drains is the worst actor in terms of overflowing. And that from that, we could kind of pinpoint which outfalls are the biggest challenge. So anyway, we can talk about that.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks.
All right, so the first thing we'll need to do, unless there's any more questions about that, is approve the payment to Sanders Brothers for $21,695. We need a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion.
And
I'll
second.
second.
Motion and a second to approve the payment. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, all opposed. Item 2, to cover the payment for the backflow preventers to WAPRO for $13,927. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I have a motion, the second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Ah,
Aye.
Aye. All right, item 4C, item 3, approve payment to law offices of David Durant and Associates for $15,846. That covers August through November 21 invoices. Ryan, everything good to go on that front?
It's all good.
Make the motion to approve.
second.
Have a motion, a second. Any more discussion on the payment to law offices of David Durant? All in favor, say aye.
Ah,
Aye.
Aye.
Item 4, approve payment to Belzer and Belzer for $1,575.
I'll make the motion.
second.
A motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Item 5, approve payment to Coastline Electric for $2,530. If I understand that correctly, that was additional work that was done to add outlets for the pavilion, Christmas light decorations. After we did the installation of all the lights, we realized we did not have enough juice out there for some of the things that we did. And also we needed additional locations, moving across sidewalks, et cetera. So we had them come back out. Preston and Ryan coordinated that, and that cost was $2,500, which completes the work that we budgeted, and that stayed within budget, correct?
It'll end up being a few $100 over.
$200 more, but it was close.
Oh, yeah, it's not.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the payment to Coastline Electric for $2,530. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All right, this time, we'd like to move into executive session to discuss legal advice or other matters covered by attorney-client privilege. Before we do that, we will need a motion and a vote.
I'll make the motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Ah,
Aye. All opposed? All right, we could clear the room except for Mr. Durant from Town Council. Ryan and Preston, thank you.
It's Ryan.
Yeah. On his way. Give him a second. I know.
It's all about in 2 minutes.
You doing?
I'll go check. Ross, go
Ross, you
check.
go grab him.
I'll go check.
Young guy. That's why I came back. To you, right? Stephen fetch it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I'd like to just make it known that no vote or formal actions were taken in executive session, but in order for us to step back into our regular meeting, we need to step out of executive session and need a vote.
Make the motion to step out of executive session.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's move on to item 6A, which is a resolution 2021-4 to authorize myself to sign a settlement agreement with regard to current pending litigation.
We just need a motion, right?
Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion to authorize the mayor to resolve the pending litigation.
Second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Item 6B, resolution 2021-05, resolution to approve payment to Sunset Lodge LLC, Frank Beatty and Barry Stanton for their litigation expenses.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, item 6C, second reading of ordinance 2021-10, and ordinance amending the 2021 annual budget. I'll hand this one over to Ryan. We discussed this at the last meeting. A summary of all of those amendments were in your packet. You want to summarize any of those?
Yeah, so we had first reading last month. There was only one item on there, and that was the franchise funds, to make it consistent with how the financial audits look at the end of the year. But I've added a few additional ones, mainly revenue that we didn't know we were getting in terms of grants. And then, you know, the A-tax, both local and state, was higher than anticipated. So this amends the budget to increase all those revenue line items. And then the expenditures, in addition to the debt service, the Sandy Cooper debt service, a couple of line items that we've gotten here towards the end of the year that it's going to go over, namely legal. You know, we put an extra $100,000 for legal as a guesstimate like 4 months ago. But we've hit that now with the approval of the legal bills that agenda this month. So that's only through the end of November. So I'm amending it. We're asking you to amend it to add another 20. I don't know what the legal bills are going to be in December. Probably not anywhere close to 20, but this is enough that it's,
We gotta push
going to cover it. So we got room to put it in there. But bottom line is I included in the packet, which has been in Dropbox since Friday, taken every single line out and broken out exactly what it is. If you have any questions.
These are housekeeping items.
Totally.
This is what we know we've spent. This is what we know we have to spend. It's not a question of, hey, we're budgeting for it or not going to pay.
Right.
This is what it is, correct?
Correct.
Barry, you got any questions on any of this?
And one of my questions always is the advertising with the chamber and.
So I mean, but that is just a product of state aid tax was a lot higher.
No, I don't mean
Yeah, I mean,
the money going to them. I mean, what we're getting back.
yeah.
Gary, any questions on?
I think so.
Rocky?
No, I don't have any, Brian.
Nor do I. Ryan and I have reviewed each one of these items as well. I don't have any issues or questions about it, so we'll need a motion to handle that.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of ordinance 2021-10, amending the 2021 annual budget. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, item 6D is second reading of ordinance 2021-11, an ordinance adopting the 2022 annual operating budget. We had a workshop to discuss all of these items back in November. The minutes are in your packet. There's some big ticket items in there that we discussed, the police budget, we discussed cost of living increases and merit increases. Any other ones that were either required more discussion or debate? Were those the main ones that I recall? The cost of living increase, merit increase, and then the police budget were the two primary ones. We've got other items in there, clearly. But those were somewhat agreed to.
there was a second page to this, right?
Yeah, that was for just the workshop. That was really to give you, I gave you different scenarios.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
So I just included that. I put that in the workshop.
Okay,
I just included it with this one.
I got a couple of questions. I mean, you really think that the revenue is gonna match what it was this year?
I mean, that's the latest information that we have. So, I mean, that's what I would go with.
The only thing that would scare me on that is that was a extraordinary 21 and probably 20 of extraordinary years. Anybody's guess is as good as the next guy.
So I would say the only change that I made between first reading and this reading is in that time, we got the state aid tax check, the last one, which was twice what we typically get. So that brought the total state aid tax revenue for the year in 2021 to $740,000. And we're expecting, around or no, so that was local tax for about $450,000 for state aid tax for the year. We had 310 budgeted. So I'm not adding more to it. I'm just putting in what we got this year as the budget for next year. So if it is if this year, 2022 is exactly the same, then that's the budget you see before you. If it ends up being more like what I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year, which is what I budgeted, that's the number that was in the first reading. So it's a difference, it's a swing of $130,000. So you're either going to have, if you look in terms of this budget, it's either going to be, we're going to be about $40,000 short, or you're going to be about $60,000, $70,000 ahead. But there's no way to know.
Okay.
So I'm using the latest information that I have, which is what we got in 2021. And I have to believe that we're going to get at least that again in 2022.
and that's not accounting for any price increases or, I mean, from everything that I've been told, bookings are still slammed.
It's, there's no reason to believe that it's going to be less than it was this year.
Mhm. Okay.
Like I said, it's a guess. On the expenditure side, so let's say that we can't work it out with the engineer to do it's just gonna cost too much to do the creek study or north end jetty study. We can't do it. It's just in the budget. We just don't spend it. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then I guess the other one was cost of living.
Yeah. I think what we talked about the cost of living last time was 5.9%, I think was what was proposed. Was it 5.9%?
Yeah.
Notes on that. I did some research myself on the cost of living, and it looked like Social Security was 5.9%. What I was going to propose is a 4% cost of living increase and a 1.5% increase for merit, which gets you to 5.5%, which is what sort of the goal was to begin with. It's just a suggestion. Throw it out on the table for discussion or other thoughts. The other option is 5.9% cost of living increase plus 1.5% or whatever what were you guys proposing for the merit? What was, that's that
So
typically?
we always budget 1.5, and then it's anywhere from 0 to 3%. Obviously, if you have employees that excel, you want to give them more than those that don't. 1.5 is kind of the middle ground. So we just assume everyone's going to balance it out.
1.5.
And, you know, if one person gets 2 and if everyone ends up getting 2, it's not a deal breaker. It doesn't throw the whole budget off. You know, we'll make it work. But usually everyone's about 1.5 working.
Got it.
It's no question that inflation's a real deal right now.
Agreed.
Ryan, I like your number because it mitigates it a little bit. Chief, I think your comment last time was maybe roll it in there a little bit instead of just doing it all at once, and that would kind of accomplish that.
It was an option, just something to look at for future.
So I like that idea, Sarah.
It's a compromise. It's still appreciable, 4.4% plus 1.5 or 3 or 1 or whatever based on performance.
I just want to go on the record, though, that in the past, when we've had 0 or 1% and we had asked for more, I was told by previous administrations, previous councils that, don't worry, it'll all even out in the end.
Yeah.
So
And essentially you'd be taking a cut.
by reducing this year, which we have like 11
Are
to
you talking about merit or are you talking about cost of living?
cost of living, you know, with the previous social security increase, cost of living increases were a couple of years were 0, a couple of years were 1, maybe 1.5%. That, you know, we were told that when we, you know, those good years, you know, you'll do well. So
Understood.
So giving less than the cost of living is essentially a pay cut.
Mhm.
and we do have you know, depending which metrics you use, at least 11%, like you said, inflation rate going on right now, as high as 14% by some accounts.
Yeah.
So, you know, a 4% cost of living increase is not going to make up for any of that.
And things have changed since the last time we met, even with the dynamics of
Dramatically.
inflation and all. Seeing it in my business, I know you are as well, Gary.
Yeah, and speaking of business, I mean, it's hard to take every employee you got and say, hey, you got a 8% increase based on inflation. And so that's just the way it is. It's hard to do. In some cases, unless your customers are paying you more, you can't get there.
Yeah.
And so most businesses don't do that. And I realize this isn't a business.
Yeah.
There's plenty of differences, but
Yeah.
I think that's what you came up with, a compromise.
I'll put it out there. The only thing we could do is go to 4.5. We did 4.5 plus 1.5. That would be 6%. That is, you said the cost of living increase was 5.9%. That's 6%. If you aggregate the two together, I mean, it's. Now, again, we've got to be
I
stewards.
don't want to feel like I'm giving the money away, but
Yep.
in the same breath, our tax revenue increased how much?
Substantially, like 25 to 30%.
Right. And I'm going to assume that much in accommodation tax revenue meant that we had that many more people on the island, which also then to me means that we are depending on the employees of the town and the police department that took on, you know, more responsibility. I mean, not necessarily more responsibility, but more workload, more people here. You've got more phone calls, more tickets, more cars. And we're saying, no, you don't get as much money. And the town's revenue increased 25%.
What I'd say to that is, we don't know yet, but more than likely, your revenue is normalized at kind of a steady rate, and which is always.
Agreed.
Boom, and we could probably attribute that to COVID and people everybody getting a $1,400 check in the mail, whether you need it or not, people going on vacations.
That's true.
But I'm not looking to increase their salaries by 25% based on the increase in taxes.
Right, but
I
my
mean,
point would be,
accommodations.
once you give that 5% or whatever, and it goes back to normalized, you're still paying that 5% right on into the future. And so we will have another chance at this. If it goes up again next year at a higher rate, we'll have to look at it again. But
But I agree with the chief as far as, how many years has it been? Nothing.
That's true.
I wasn't aware of that.
But you had 2 years, I don't know what percent, all the police officers got what percent of a raise?
We did have to do a catch-up, which was spread out over 2 years, but we also funded that by reducing the police department by one officer.
What percent of that?
It came out to 4.5% and 4.5%
So now,
over 2 years
And that was just to bring you all in line with other,
with area agencies
right?
because of all those 0 years, I guess, yeah.
do we need to make a call vote on that, or that's not a?
Well, I mean, we're still discussing it, obviously. I put out on the table 4.5. I don't know how you feel about that, how you feel about that. Rocky, how you feel about that 4.5 plus 1.5% merit? It gets us to the
Okay.
6% that we discussed originally. If you guys want to do more, entertaining the discussion right now, it's up to you guys. And gals.
At a 5.9% on the police salaries, how much are we talking about? Ballpark.
20-some $1,000. That's with 4 full-time officers. That's with the town
Right.
clerk. Doesn't affect me. I've got a contract, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't affect me at all.
Does that, or Ryan, does that include the temporaries?
No. Oh, the part-timers?
Yeah.
Part-time officers,
part-timers.
yes, it does.
So they get a 5.9.
So we're gonna,
Maybe we get the increase too.
I was gonna say, we're gonna beat this to death.
They don't get the merit increase, but they get the cost of living increase.
Got it.
I make a
Yeah,
motion and then
so-
we go with the compromise,
Which would be,
what could eventually be 6% with the 4.5 and 1.5.
That sounds reasonable to me.
is that a second?
Oh,
A second.
I'm sorry. Was that a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the second.
All right, I have a motion in a second. Well, actually, we don't really have to vote on, we got to vote on the budget. I mean, this is a piece of it.
I'll just make the adjustment in the budget and when you
Yeah.
pass it, all that, I'll just,
Yeah, I don't think we need necessarily a vote on that. Well, I mean, we can.
Doesn't hurt.
It's procedural, yeah. Let's say we have a motion in a second on the cost of living increase of 4.5% plus a 1.5% merit for the 2022,
Can the merit be anything higher than 1.5?
yes.
And per employee. Well, one might be one might be 2, the next one might be 1.
We're saying, because the scale is 0 to 3, is that what it is, Ryan?
Yeah.
Gives a little bit of, I mean,
and that's what we budget anyway.
yeah, and the goal is to even it out at 1.5%. So we have a motion, a second, now we're having discussion, so what are the thoughts or questions?
Are other police departments giving cost of living raises at
Suffolk
5.9?
County, are they doing it?
Do we know?
I don't know that they're specifically doing it, but I mean, if you look at a lot of this ARPA funds,
Mhm.
they're giving those in the form of, bonuses to all their law enforcement, first responders. So
Wow.
it's not really comparing apples to apples, but
Then I'd just like to go on record that I would rather see 5.9.
when the consumer price index comes out on Friday, it says that inflation is a real deal and prices are up 6.9% over this time last year. Gas is up 50%, groceries are up 6%. All that says to me is that whatever your salary is, things cost 6.8% more than they did this time last year. So whatever salary you get is not going to buy the same amount as it did the year before. So by not giving,
You're taking a pay cut.
taking a pay cut, you're not being compensated as much for the previous year. We could talk about it being transitory and temporary, but just like the state aid tax, no one knows. But it's a real deal. It's
We
happening.
had to play catch up one time already.
We might have to do it again.
Yeah, we might. And I think we should be willing to do that. That is the case. I mean, we're
But
adopting,
we're not willing to do it now.
because I think what, to Gary's point is if we do it now and things normalize, then we're in that boat where it is what it is.
Sarah, you're talking.
$20,000.
You recommended how much? What percent do you recommend for the?
It's, but what we've used for well before I even,
10 years,
20 years.
20 years.
It's always been the
Cost of living.
cost of living adjustment that's in by the Social Security office every year. It comes out in October. So we've used that every year. I've been here
Right.
and 10 years before me, at least
And what percent was that this year?
5.9.
Okay, so we're 4.5, so we're talking 1.4%. It's not much, it's a compromise.
But the point is, if the 5.9 cost us $20,000, so a 1%,
It's not gonna be 20,000. That number doesn't go away. It goes on year after year after year after year after year. It's not a 1 year and done. You start over at zero again. It's a year after year. So next year it'll be another 20,000.
no.
Yes, it will. If you.
Well, but,
It adds.
but it can go to
It
zero.
compounds is what it does. So it's not just a 1 year deal, it compounds. So next year, if it's 7%, it's still the 4.5% plus the 7%. So it doesn't go away. It just.
But your cost of, does that ever go down? Does cost of living go down?
I've never
Does
seen.
it go negative? No.
Not.
So, but at 5.9, what if it's zero next year?
But
Then it's gonna be, it'll still be the 20,000 will be there. And then that's where we'll bring it back up, say, let's catch up, because we've had several years and it's not fair or whatever, and we want to catch up. Doesn't go away.
No, and I understand that, but that's what it costs to maintain that standard of living.
And I agree, and the whole country, the whole world is having a compromise right now. So I mean, everybody compromises. I think everybody's seeing it too.
I just think when the town has depended on these guys, not just the police department, but the whole staff of the town to step up. And
The only person other than police is gonna be Preston, and who else? Because Ryan's, you said yours is on a contract, which surprises me.
in fact, doesn't, I don't get that. I haven't had it in 3 years. Just fine.
like I said, I just.
Let me call a vote. Let me call the vote. So we have a motion and a second on a cost of living increase of 4.5% and a merit increase of 1.5% for the 2022 budget. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed.
Nay,
Did you vote, Rocky?
no.
I did, aye.
You did aye, okay. All right, so that's part of the budget. Now, the other part, unless I'm off base here, the only other thing that, I know some of y'all have a hard stop at 6, that's 18 minutes from now. We need to discuss the police budget. Ryan sent us a analysis that shows what the police budget is for 2022 with the full complement of officers like we had this past year. He sent us a second column that showed a reduction by 1 officer and a third column, a reduction of 2 officers and what that effectively did to the budget for the police department. That figure basically included payroll expenses, did not include such things as training, fuel, vehicle, uniforms, radios, all the things that accompany a full-time officer. So at the budget workshop that we had, obviously we discussed reducing the budget of the police department. We discussed a number of reasons for that. The town has always operated with a rainy day fund. And there's always been money for emergencies, storms, beach renourishments. There was a 20-year nest egg that built over time that allowed us to do the beach renourishment, that allowed us to spend, how much was it? $9 million. And we had to borrow money to do that. We discussed doing capital projects for the town, whether it be future beach renourishments, creek dredging, drainage projects, flooding, all of those things. We don't have a mechanism in place. We know we need to have a mechanism in place. We talked about taxes. You brought up at the last budget workshop, raise your hand if you don't mind seeing a tax, 600, who wouldn't mind paying that? Once there's a tax, then there's more tax, and then the taxes increase. In my mind, that's a slippery slope. We need some type of a rainy day fund. There's really there's not an assessment in place. We don't have any Island Preservation Fund that I know of. We need to make it a priority next year, obviously, to identify whether it's grants, assessments, taxes, private donations. Obviously, we've got some individuals with resources on the island. I think our number one goal, and we'd be remiss if we didn't say this, is to keep everyone safe, not just the residents, but the property owners, the visitors, the vacationers. Because if we get a reputation of not having a safe environment on Pawleys, then that's going to affect that top line revenue number that we just said we want to be the same. Again, there's opportunities to leverage technology. I think that the license readers on the north and south causeways and other cameras that we have certainly contributed to the effectiveness of the safety of the island. I wonder about Litchfield, for example. Does Litchfield have their own police force? They rely on the county. They have a similar setup that we do. I mean, they have multiple property owners, they have residents, and they have probably a high percentage of homes that are there that are not occupied year round. I don't know where they get their police coverage, but probably from the county, I would assume. And I'm just talking. I'm just putting this out there for discussion. We as property owners, we pay tax for the county to have coverage. There's no reason to expect that we would have any less coverage here than someone over at Hagley or someone off the North Causeway. We would expect the same level of not only coverage, but response time in case there is, obviously with our dedicated police force, which no one's talking about getting rid of. We would still have expedited response times. No one's talking about defunding the police. It's a buzzword in the media. No one wants to do that. But we do have a responsibility. We're stewards of the town's money. Is the police force at an optimum size right now in terms of people? I think we would all agree that during the summer season, that's a moving target. Is that April to October? I mean, the heat of it is May through September. We don't want to reduce that by any stretch of the imagination. But as far as the full-time complement, is that the right number? And I'll leave it at that. I'll let you guys chime in and have your say.
So first, I'd say nobody has mentioned or even talked about defunding. I agree with you. That's a buzzword and that hadn't been discussed. And but there's a difference between defunding and looking toward the future and say, hey, one of the legacies of Pawleys Island is, Sarah, you and Bill Otis and the rest of the councils, when I got here, it was a big amount of money in the bank, and we were able to do something which is probably the most significant capital project done on Pawleys Island ever, which was the beach renourishment.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to do underground wiring, and all the other things. And we did that because we had you and Bill and his crowd, your crowd, were very conservative and so on and so on, and the police force built up. But when it built it up, we didn't have the technology that we have now. And so perhaps, I know we have an officer retiring. It just seems to me like that's a good opportunity to say, hey, maybe we don't get another officer, one's retiring. And if one retires and we don't need another vehicle, and there's an opportunity to save some money, build up that fund for what we all want. We all want to save the beach. We also want a beach. And we also want to look at the creek behind your house. Is there something we can do with that? You're not going to do it without money. And so it's not in this case. I would prefer something where Ryan and the chief has a fixed amount to work with. And you figure it out. You figure it out. You say, here's where I want to put these resources, and you spend up to that amount. And I would also prefer that we do like other government agencies where you have zero-based funding or budgets. You don't start a number way up here and then add to it. We start at the bottom and figure out what we need, because every year is different. And then when you go 5 years, 5 years into the future, it's really, really different. So that's my 2 cents worth, and that's what I would recommend that we look at it, see what's worked together and figure out how we can maintain a good police force, but a reduced police force. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, good and reduce aren't divergent paths. They can be the same thing.
I agree.
Hey, Brian, can you all hear me at all?
We can.
Well, I was just going to say that, to sort of piggyback a little bit on what Gary said, I think Mike's letter to us, which was very good, by the way, Mike.
Yeah, it was, Mike. Thank you.
Pointed out some really, really interesting information. I guess the first of it is in terms of the use of additional technology. I believe we should absolutely follow your lead in terms of the areas that you indicated could benefit from that additional technology. Now, I don't know if we can afford all of them at one time, but we should certainly take your knowledge in terms of what the priority might be to best help us there and go ahead and get that technology in place, get it operational just as soon as we can figure out the cost and how we pay for that. So that was the first thing that hit me. The other thing that hit me from your letter was if you're looking at the years in terms of the level of service, calls for service, the level of burglaries, the level of break-ins, larcenies on the island, it was really instructive to me to see the dramatic change between sort of, I take it, if I read your info correctly, Mike, between 2016 and today. The total burglaries went down from about 60 to 15 over the same 2 5-year periods. 2012, 2016, you had 60 burglaries. 2016 to 2021, you had 15. So that's like a 75% reduction. Likewise, on larcenies, you went from 124 to 66. So that's like, again, sort of a 50% reduction. I suspect, I would think, just not being in your business, but I would suspect that a lot of that, or some of that at least, was related to the bad guys knowing that we got technology watching now, and that they can't get away with things that they might have been able to do in the past. So I think that a combination of additional technology, perhaps some right-sized good calls in terms of right-sizing the police force for the day we got, what the times that we are facing and the issues that we have. Some combination of those two could help us with this huge challenge of creating a rainy day fund for these major capital expenditures that are coming down the pike. And we know, I will remind everybody that in the last meeting, we learned from Ryan that as of, I don't know, what was it, Ryan, maybe 2 to 3 years from now, we no longer have any kind of surplus. We no longer have any kind of surplus in the budget. We start going in the negative. So, it's not as if we can just sort of sit back and hope that this problem goes away and that we'll be able to pay for these things that the homeowners want. The homeowners want the beach to be cared for. They want the creek to be dredged. They want the roads to stop flooding. So, I think we've got to find a way to balance these things. And I believe that what Gary, you said about perhaps taking advantage of the retiring officer and combining that with some technology. I know, Gary, you have other ideas in terms of technological opportunities that might involve individual homeowners, perhaps. I think, and then as you say, Brian, relying more on the county. We are indeed all paying taxes for county services, no doubt, just like Litchfield does and the rest of the county does. We don't really call on them very often now for support on the island, unless something really, really egregious happens. But I think maybe we should start doing that and get Mike some additional help in that regard as well. So anyway, those are my thoughts, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I think that there are a lot of people who live on the island, obviously, who have come to expect the level of service that we receive from the police department. And if I had everybody here who has either stopped and talked to me or has called me that want to keep the police force and the presence that we have, and they'd be willing to pay for it, whether it's, you know, a fundraising thing or whatever. I mean, there's just a lot of people that count on it. And then, you know, for us to decide, you know, amongst us, what affects everybody on the island, you know, yes, we all know that there has to be money put away for the beach, the creek, all of that. But if people are willing, want to call it a tax, just, you know, we can call it beach renourishment fund that people would contribute to. And I'm not saying that, you know, technology hasn't obviously helped us. I think that it has. I think the license plate reader was a huge instrument for us. And there were a lot of people on the island that were opposed to it. They felt like Big Brother was watching. And now I don't think I've ever heard in recent years a negative comment about it. But I also feel that our larcenies and our burglaries have dropped because we do have a presence. And there's a lot of homes here that are vacant. And North Litchfield, well, there's a lot of permanent residents in North Litchfield versus vacant houses.
And if I could just make a comparison to the Litchfield situation and our situation is they have a dedicated beach patrol that comes out during the summer. It's funded by grant money, I believe. And they have 2 officers that are assigned to work the beach, to work Litchfield. So during those hours, especially during the daytime hours, they have officers out on their 4-wheelers.
Got it.
All,
What about November through?
so they relocate those officers, reallocate those officers to different things. Now they're doing bank checks and.
These are county.
That's the county, yeah. So we don't have that.
But part of our point is that
We should,
we should be getting
Same
same thing.
thing.
Resources.
we should be getting the same
We're
thing.
paying for
Well, that might be true, but,
it. It's true.
oh, no, I'm saying it's true, but I don't think that they're gonna send their beach patrol down here to patrol our beach.
Well, they're not, if we never ask, if we don't say, hey, we expect the same need. I mean, the county councilmen that represent Litchfield represent us.
I think you should, then you should craft,
Seems fair.
you should craft a request of that and I'd let the city respond.
You can help us craft that request. I mean, you should get more resources than we needed here, because certainly on the western side of the county, we need resources, that it's opposite. They need more probably, not at the same time you need them here. But I would,
And let's also just get it out of, we're not talking about reducing coverage during the summer. Now, I don't think I mean, we're not.
But I can't man 20 hours a day with 3 people. I have if you read this, my part-time officers, they have jobs.
Yeah.
So they basically help me out on a day-to-day basis. If they're off for the day or on the weekends, we schedule them. But, you know, if the night, I mean, I'll stretch out our hours as much as we can, but you're definitely going to see a reduction in, or at least dark, you know, non-daylight hours. So, you know, the beach accesses that accumulate people and become levels of lanes, or they, in the past, there were kind of some drug activity down there at the south end parking lot and noise complaints and stuff. You know, I can't guarantee that we can mitigate that.
Yeah, understood.
You know, and if people call 911, I'm sure the sheriff's office will come eventually. But it's not going to be like they're on the island and they'll be there in 2 minutes.
How many full-time residents are on the island right now?
Full time, I can only go by the amount of people.
About 110?
Oh,
110, is that fair?
I mean, it depends what you use, but I mean, I like to say that even in the slowest time of year, which would be about this time of January, I would say 500 to 1,000. Because
I mean, if you drive around, you look at all the amount of cars that are in the houses.
Get people.
At least half of them are full, whether they're monthly renters, winter
Same would
renters.
be true of Litchfield right now? Same number of people?
I think they have more full-time.
I would say more people live there full time.
But they have probably more people in general on the island right now than we do. Probably. Same number, maybe comparable number of people in Litchfield. They don't have a dedicated police force up there. They have Georgetown County. We have a dedicated police force. That's great. I mean, I'm happy and we still will, whether that's 4 full-time officers or 3 full-time, whether that's 3 full-time in the summer with part-time help. Listen, I'm not against, we need coverage, we need safety and all of that. Question is, do we need what we have now?
And I'm not arguing for or against, I'm just
I understand.
offering my.
And you did an outstanding job in the 5-page memo that you sent to us, and I sincerely appreciate it, because when I first got it, I went, holy cow, that's a lot of stuff. But when I sat down over the weekend and read through it, it's really good stuff. So I appreciate you doing that. And I really like the recommendations on additional locations for cameras. I think we need to do that.
To my point in the Better Road, that technology is great, but it's a tool.
Absolutely.
And we need people to be able to manipulate those tools.
And there's some administrative time. I mean, there is. I think we all look, and what I do, what all of us do in our day-to-days, you say, oh, how much time does that take you? Well, you'd be surprised.
No.
I work hard. Everybody works hard. So
No, I'm not getting defensive. No,
I know you're not.
Yeah.
I'm acknowledging what you put in here
I appreciate that.
as important.
So I mean, if you guys have a number in mind, put it out there and we'll work on it.
Here's what I want to put on the table, and you can debate this. I know we're short on time. I know, and I hate that because I feel like this is important. But as I look at your memo, what I would propose is a 3-person full-time roster. That would provide us with 12-hour coverage. Okay, 8 to 8. I would obviously change that to be different times so that the bad people don't know when you're going to be here, obviously. 2 vehicles, make sure that you can keep the 3rd vehicle as long as it'll last. Install cameras at the proposed locations. Do the best you can to ramp up peak season part-time help during the summer. And speak to the sheriff and say, hey, we've got good coverage. We've got great officers, but hey, can we get some more support? What about us? I don't mean like that, but Litchfield gets a fair amount of your attention. Can we just get some additional thought or at least coverage or?
I'll definitely have to speak to them about the overnight hours to just make sure that their officers are aware that there may or may not be coverage at certain times. And that if they hear the call come over, that they're gonna have to respond. And if there's only one person working, and if there's a priority call, that we need the backup. And we have that type of working relationship with them now. You see from time to time that we have to respond off the island to back them up. So it's a mutual agreement.
If you think about it, we're not only constituents and payers of partial payers of county police protection. They're probably the largest landowners, aren't they? The county in the south end parking lot.
I don't know percentage wise, but they own.
They own
the largest lot, yeah.
So, I mean, it seems to me it'd be easy enough to say, we just need y'all to patrol it more because we're gonna patrol it less.
That's a good point.
Put it out there.
That's a good point. And that could be, I'm happy to have that discussion with you.
And I'll let the highway patrol know that also that, with speeding complaints and DUI complaints and stuff like that, that they may need to put a little extra presence out here too.
Yeah. And listen, if this is what we do and next year is a debacle,
Different story.
if it's a debacle, then shame on us. Let's revisit it.
Okay.
So do we have a number?
Oh, that was the other thought. I mean, we can give you a number and say, manage to that. But what I prefer to do is if we went with what I just outlined, a 3-person, roster, 12-hour coverage, switch up the hours, 2 vehicles, install cameras, et cetera. Tell us what that number is. I mean, in my mind and looking at it just rudimentarily is around $400,000. That's where I can.
That's significant for the town. If we can maintain good level of safety and maintain the police force and improve our relationship with the county and the highway patrol and save that money to put in the bank for the future, that's a big deal.
And
And we, the officers of the police department, we appreciate the position the town's in. You know, we are one storm away from wiping out everything that, you've saved, and then some. And my guys are very dedicated. I know that you don't see them often and you don't see the work that they do day to day, but you know, each one of you have been recipients of, having to call 911 or call the town for something, you know, whether it was a quality of life thing or not, or something more serious. They give the town 100%, as far as safety and their attention. John's become a very good investigator.
That was awesome.
Very in depth with the cameras and interrogation skills and that type of thing. So
I would agree.
We'll continue to give you, even if it's 3-person police department, we'll give you that 300%. So.
I have no doubt. Jono is outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
That's where I am on.
That number work, Ryan? We can work within that, right?
About the car, wouldn't like it work.
Y'all talking about doing a resolution, some sort of, some kind of vote in next year's budget based on this discussion? Or y'all just discuss it?
We took a vote earlier, I think too much step up on that. But that makes sense, that we do a resolution to draft the budget based on discussion with it all encompassing. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I'll make sure I understand the motion. The motion is to draft a resolution that amends the budget to accommodate the 3-person roster, the 2 vehicles, installation of
And
cameras,
also the other things we discussed as well, including
the cost of living increase, 1.5.
With the county, adding the county in as well.
And does that include part-time officers in the summer when we need them?
that's the chief.
That's about 20, that's 400,000 is sort of the target. Okay, and if you guys want to go at it and say, Brian, Gary, town council, we can't do it for less than 415 or 430 or whatever it is, based on what we just talked about, then bring it to us and you know what, you're right.
You can always come back.
Right.
Hire a private firm to do the releases that year. So if you have an issue with funds, then you can always come back.
So you made a motion to that regard.
To take the issues that we've discussed, which were changes in the police department, cost of living, and incorporating that into the new revised budget. That's my suggestion.
So the problem is you need a passed budget before January 1. So either I could go back, make all these changes.
Meeting before January 1st.
Or you could pass it as is. And we could
And
pass
then
a
make-
budget amendment like the first in January meeting. So all you're
Or
gonna
we
do-
could pass it with $400,000 for the.
Yeah, we don't need to put it off.
I think you're better off doing, Ryan suggested, is a vote of council on the budget to amend the budget in January versus doing it in conflicts of this budget. Go ahead and approve this budget as it currently exists. You got it, come back again.
You could strike the car. I mean, that's easy to just, we knock that out, but it's gonna change everything a lot.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
First week in, or second Monday of January, we put it on the roster, vote for amendment to the budget to reflect y'all's discussions today.
And it's not as clean cut because Tracy doesn't retire until March, so it's not like we can just remove her from the equation. Still got 3 months, and she has vacation and hours due to her above and beyond 3 months. She'll still be working there.
So what I would say to that is, let's pass the budget, remove the vehicle. And when we meet second Monday in January, bring us what you think that budget needs to be with person full-time. with Tracy staying to March, with the goal being still being 400,000. And you say, well, with Tracy in the equation or with so-and-so, with the training that you're missing, it needs to be this. And then we're gonna amend the budget in January to some degree. It's a question.
Well, the only other question that I have for procedure standpoint here. Was your motion seconded? There is.
Rocky, did you second my motion?
I did.
You need to withdraw the motion for tonight. And then we'll do it for the council meeting on the agenda. So anybody who wants to know this can get it. Is that okay with you?
Is that what you want to do? Okay.
Here.
What do you want to do? All right,
Yeah, I
let's do
think
that. I'll withdraw the motion.
I think that's good. So we still need a motion to approve the 2022 budget. Are we gonna amend the budget to remove the vehicle
Yeah.
to do
I
that?
just vote to make it, I mean, it's not passed yet, so all you're doing is making changes to a budget you have not approved yet. So I will strike the vehicle from the budget.
I'm just curious, how can you strike that? You can change the vehicle, but you can't make the other change.
Because he's.
I could, but I could say 400,
Don't have a number.
it's just sloppy. Man, there's so many different, every line item, the car is one line item, you just change it,
All right,
it's easy math.
Got it.
But just
So you
saying,
need a motion to adopt the budget as presented minus the vehicle.
correct, if that's the only change you're making.
That's the only change that I think that we're making. You've got the 5.9 in there now, though.
Hey, but you're gonna amend it in January, so I will adjust all that, bring it back, and all the line items that are affected by it, you'll amend it. So all the salary will change,
Got it.
insurance, everything.
You want to so move that?
I will so move.
Second,
I'll second.
Got a motion, a second. Any further discussion on that motion? Thanks for everybody's patience in that. Appreciate it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Aye.
Thank you, Rocky. The next one should be easy. Item 6E, approved Christmas bonus, full-time employees, 400, part-time employees, 150.
so moved.
Second.
Got a motion, a second to approve the Christmas bonus. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any comment? Thank you, Rocky. Any comments from council?
Move to adjourn.
I'd say Merry Christmas, to everybody. Thank you all
Merry
for being here and it's all good. Motion for adjournment, second.
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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Rocky. Have fun, man.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go see some music in Georgia.